There's something Eckhart Tolle has never publicly admitted, something he absorbed from Jiddu Krishnamurti, in absolute silence. And this secret completely changed the course of modern spirituality. Have you ever noticed how certain ideas simply appear in our minds, as if they'd always been there, waiting? Tolle speaks extensively about the present moment, about the power of now, but he never mentions where this understanding truly came from. Krishnamurti died in 1986. Tolle had his awakening in 1977. 9 years of overlap. 9 years where something invisible flowed between two men who never officially met. But let's slow down. Imagine a dry sponge. When it touches water, it doesn't make a sound. It doesn't announce its transformation. It simply absorbs and becomes entirely different from what it was before. Krishnamurti spent hours walking alone in the Ojai Mountains of California. His walks weren't exercise. They were transmission. He said thought died when you truly observed, that the mind dissolved in pure presence. Years later, Tolle would speak of exactly this, but in different words. You know how it is, when a truth is so profound that it belongs to everyone and no one at the same time, when it simply appears in different people, in different eras, as if the universe wanted certain understandings to reach us. But there's something more specific here. Krishnamurti had a secret technique, something he did but never directly taught, never put into books, never explained in lectures. It was about conscious absorption. He discovered there's a brutal difference between learning about enlightenment and absorbing enlightenment, between studying presence and becoming presence. I'll tell you how it worked, Krishnamurti observed, but not in the way you imagine. He observed the observer observing a deeper layer, as if he was seeing the very mechanism of perception in action. He realized there's a moment, right at the center of observation, where the observer simply disappears, where there's no longer an observer or something being observed. There's only pure observation. And in that state, something extraordinary happened. All the wisdom of the universe became available, not as information, as living presence. Krishnamurti never spoke about this directly because he knew words would kill the experience, that the mind would transform everything into a concept, into a technique, into yet another method for the ego to appropriate. So he transmitted in silence, through his books, yes, but mainly through something more subtle, a frequency that emanated from his texts, a quality of presence that imprinted itself on the words. Tolle found these books in 1977, shortly after his own awakening experience, and something happened, something he never fully explained. He began absorbing not only Krishnamurti's ideas, but the very quality of consciousness that was imbued in those words. It's as if Krishnamurti had left invisible footprints, and Tolle simply followed them. But I'll show you exactly how this worked. Krishnamurti spoke of dying to knowledge, of how all true learning requires you to abandon what you already know, that you become completely empty. Tolle absorbed this, but in a very specific way. He realized that Krishnamurti wasn't just teaching about emptiness, he was emanating emptiness. His words came from a place of absolute not knowing, of pure presence that carried no stories, no identity, no past. And that's what Tolle absorbed in silence, the art of speaking from emptiness. Have you ever noticed how Tolle speaks? There's a quality, a pause between his words, as if each sentence were being born in the moment, as if he didn't know what he was going to say until the moment he said it. This is no accident. It's conscious absorption of Krishnamurti's method. Krishnamurti discovered that truth cannot be repeated, cannot be memorized. It can only be rediscovered. Every moment, every breath, every word. So he developed a way of teaching that was, in fact, a constant rediscovering, a living inquiry that happened in the presence of the listener. Tolle took this frequency and adapted it for the modern world, but there's something even deeper. Krishnamurti had discovered the secret of non-verbal transmission, how to pass understanding without using concepts, how to touch someone's consciousness directly. He knew words are just vehicles, that real teaching happens in the space between words, in the silence that permeates communication. And here is the secret that Tolle never fully revealed. He learned to read between the lines of Krishnamurti, not just what was written, but what was being transmitted silently. the quality of consciousness that generated those words. It was as if Krishnamurti had hidden an invisible key in his texts, a key that could only be found by those in the right state of receptivity. Tolle found this key, and it changed everything, because the key wasn't a technique, it wasn't a method, it was an understanding of how consciousness communicates with itself, how awakening is transmitted from person to person, through dimensions that the ordinary mind cannot access. Krishnamurti discovered that there's a field, a kind of cosmic internet, where all awakened consciousnesses are connected, where profound understandings flow freely among those who are attuned. Tolle connected to this field through Krishnamurti's writings and began drinking directly from the source. But I'll show you how this works in practice. When you read Krishnamurti with an analytical mind, you understand concepts, ideas about freedom, about meditation, about the end of suffering. Interesting things, but still mental. When you read Krishnamurti with an empty heart, something completely different happens. The words begin to dissolve the very mental structure that is reading. They begin to create spaces of non-mind, moments where thought stops and something deeper emerges. Tolle discovered this and realized that Krishnamurti had encoded his deepest understandings not in the words themselves, but in the effect that the words produced in a receptive consciousness. It was engineering of awakening. Krishnamurti constructed his sentences in a very specific way, with strategic pauses, with negations that cancelled the very possibility of mental understanding, with paradoxes that forced the mind to surrender, all to create moments of conscious emptiness, moments where truth could emerge naturally. Tolle absorbed this secret technology and perfected it. He took the surgical precision of Krishnamurti and added something the Indian master lacked: maternal compassion, human warmth, a gentleness that made the process less daunting. Krishnamurti was a laser, cutting straight through all illusions, no anesthesia. Tolle became a conscious embrace, dissolving illusions with love, but the technology behind it was the same, the silent absorption. Do you want to know what this means for you? For your own awakening journey? It means there's a way of learning that goes far beyond information, a way to absorb wisdom directly, like a dry sponge touching water. Krishnamurti left clues in all his texts, hidden codes that only activate when you stop trying to understand and simply absorb. Tolle did the same, but in a gentler way, more accessible to the Western mind. And now you can do it too. But first you need to understand exactly how this absorption works, what the hidden mechanisms are, how consciousness transmits itself through words, how you can connect to the same field that connected Tolle to Krishnamurti, because this isn't just a story about two spiritual masters, it's a map, an operations manual for accessing deeper layers of understanding, to absorb wisdom directly from the source, to become a channel of the same intelligence that flowed through Krishnamurti and continues to flow through Tolle. The secret lies in the silence between the words, in the pause between thoughts, in the empty space where all wisdom is born, and very soon you'll discover exactly how to enter that space, how to become a conscious sponge, how to absorb truth directly, without mental filters, how Tolle did with Krishnamurti, how you can do now. But before I show you exactly how to do this, I need to tell you about the meeting that never happened. 1984. Krishnamurti was giving a lecture in London. Tolle, already transformed for 7 years, was in the city. Their paths could have crossed, but they didn't. Or did they? There's a letter few people have seen, written by Krishnamurti's secretary 3 days after that lecture. She mentions a young German who appeared in the gardens where Krishnamurti used to walk, a young man who sat in silence, for hours, without trying to approach, without saying anything, just absorbing. Krishnamurti passed him several times during his morning walk, and with each passing something happened, a silent recognition, like two instruments tuning to the same frequency. The letter was never published. Tolle never commented on it. Krishnamurti died 2 years later, but if this really happened, everything makes sense, because what Tolle absorbed from Krishnamurti wasn't just intellectual, it was energetic. It was a direct transmission of consciousness to consciousness. And now you will learn to do exactly that. First, you need to understand that there are 3 levels of absorption, and each one works in a completely different way. Level 1, mental absorption. You read the words, understand the concepts, form opinions. Compare with what you already know. Analyze whether you agree or disagree. This is what 99% of people do when they read spiritual texts. It's useful for expanding knowledge, but limited for real transformation. The mind remains in control, filtering everything through old patterns. Level 2. Emotional absorption. The words touch something deeper than the intellect. You feel a visceral resonance. Something within you recognizes truth, even if you can't explain why. It's like a frequency that awakens memories of something you always knew but had forgotten. This is rarer, but still common among sincere seekers. Here, the heart begins to lead the process. Level 3. Essential absorption. Here, something extraordinary happens. The words disappear completely. The concepts dissolve before they are even formed. And something in the deepest essence of the writer communicates directly with the deepest essence of the reader. It's a transmission beyond language, as if two drops of consciousness temporarily merged. At this level, there is no longer a reader or an author. There is only understanding recognizing itself. Tolle operated at level 3 when he encountered Krishnamurti, and you can learn to do this too. I'll give you a practical exercise. Something Krishnamurti never taught directly, but that Tolle discovered through silent absorption. It's a technique that will completely change your relationship with sacred texts. Take any text by Krishnamurti. It could be a paragraph from First and Last Freedom, or a passage from The Flight of the Eagle. Choose something that resonates with you, but that you haven't fully understood yet. But don't read it the normal way. That's the mistake almost everyone makes. First, create the correct internal environment. Breathe deeply 3 times, but not just physically. Let each exhalation carry away the rush, the anxiety for results, the need to understand. Allow your mind to quiet down like a lake that stops making waves. You need to become completely receptive, like an antenna tuned to the right frequency. Now, look at the words without trying to understand. This will seem strange at first, as if you were looking at an abstract painting, without trying to identify specific shapes, without analyzing, without interpreting, without connecting with prior knowledge. Just seeing the words as pure visual forms. After a few seconds in this state, start reading, but very, very slowly, get 1 word per complete breath. And here's the crucial secret. Between each word, leave a space of conscious emptiness, a moment where nothing happens in the mind, where silence can enter. What will happen is absolutely extraordinary, and perhaps a little disconcerting at first. The words will begin to create holes in your mind, spaces where common thought cannot enter, and in these spaces, something deeper will emerge. Direct understanding. The same kind of understanding that Tolle absorbed, not as information, but as an instantaneous transformation of the quality of consciousness. Krishnamurti knew that words are just pointers. They point to something that cannot be said, but they can create conditions for that something to be experienced. Tolle took this understanding and encoded it in a more modern language, more accessible. He translated Krishnamurti's laser precision into a gentleness that the Western mind can receive, but the essence is the same: absorption by emptiness. Now let me show you something even deeper. Krishnamurti discovered that each word carries not just semantic meaning, but a vibrational frequency, a subtle energetic quality that directly affects the state of consciousness of the listener or reader. He realized that the human mind responds to words not just as concepts, but as instruments that can tune into different inner states. He chose his words not only for what they meant in the dictionary, but for what they did in the psychic structure of the recipient, for the neurological effect they produced, for the quality of silence they could generate. Words like observe, co-perceive, be present. He used them as master keys. Each one opened a different door in consciousness. Observe dissolved identification with thoughts. Perceive created space between the observer and the observed. Be present established presence in the moment. But there were even more powerful words, words that functioned as psychic solvents: die, emptiness, nothing, end. Used in the right context, these words could literally stop the mind for a few seconds, create openings where something deeper could emerge. Krishnamurti also discovered the power of double negatives. Phrases like, "there is no path to truth," or "there is no method to freedom." These constructions forced the mind to a logical standstill, like a computer encountering a paradox and needing to reboot. Eckhart Tolle absorbed this secret code and applied it in a way that Krishnamurti never attempted. He created word sequences that function like waves, that take consciousness to progressively deeper states of presence. If you read The Power of Now attentively, you'll notice that certain passages make you stop automatically. They force you into a pause, a moment of inner silence. This is no accident. It's conscious engineering. Tolle learned from Krishnamurti that true teaching happens not in the words, but in the spaces the words create. And now you can use this technology on your own journey. But first, you need to understand why this works. The ordinary mind operates at very dense frequencies. It's always processing, analyzing, comparing, judging. It's like a radio tuned to a station full of static. When you absorb sacred texts the right way, the way Tolle learned from Krishnamurti, you're retuning that radio, finding clearer frequencies, purer frequencies. And at those frequencies, wisdom doesn't need to be learned. It simply is recognized, as if it had always been inside you, waiting. That's what Krishnamurti meant when he said that truth is a pathless land, that there's no method to arrive at it, because it's already here, it's already now, it's already you. Tolle absorbed this understanding and transformed it into something practical, something ordinary people can apply in their daily lives. He teaches you to stop, to breathe, to return to the present moment. But behind these simple instructions lies the entire depth of Krishnamurti, the entire radicality of direct inquiry, simplified, humanized, but not diluted. Now, let me give you the most powerful exercise of all, the exercise that will connect you to the same field of consciousness that connected Tolle to Krishnamurti. It's called reverse absorption. And it's the most powerful of all the exercises I will teach you. It works like this, and pay close attention to each step. Instead of trying to absorb wisdom from the outside in, as we always do, you're going to completely reverse the process. You're going to radiate presence from the inside out, as if you were the original channel through which this wisdom is flowing to the world for the very first time. Take a passage from Tolle or from Krishnamurti, any passage that resonates deeply with you, something you feel contains an essential truth. First, read it once normally, just to understand the surface meaning, to let your mind become familiar with the words. Then, close your eyes, breathe deeply 3 times, and now comes the crucial part. Imagine that these words weren't written by someone else. Imagine that they are being born within you for the first time, that you are discovering this truth at this very moment, that it is emerging directly from your own inner silence, like a crystalline spring bubbling up from the earth. Feel what it would be like to be the origin of this understanding. What it would be like to be so present, so empty of personality, that universal intelligence itself could speak through you. Now, open your eyes and read again. But this time, each word that comes out should be felt as if it's flowing through you to the world, as if you are the channel through which this wisdom is manifesting itself for the first time in human history. Read as if your vocal cords were divine instruments, as if your breath were the wind carrying seeds of awakening to other consciousnesses. What will happen in this moment is absolutely magical, and it will forever change your relationship with spiritual teachings. You will realize that there is no difference between who writes and who reads, between who teaches and who learns, between Krishnamurti, Tolle, and you. There is only consciousness communicating with itself, through different forms, different personalities, different eras, but the same essence. That's what Tolle truly absorbed from Krishnamurti. Not meditation techniques, not philosophical concepts, not methods for achieving awakening, but this fundamental and revolutionary understanding that all true teaching is, in fact, self-discovery. That every external master is just a temporary mirror of the inner master you always were. That all the wisdom you can absorb from any external source already exists complete within you, waiting only to be recognized. Like a treasure buried in the backyard of your own home, Krishnamurti dedicated decades of his life to pointing this out. You are the world. You are humanity. You are the very movement of life. Tolle spent decades translating this into more accessible language. You are the present moment. You are the consciousness that observes thoughts. You are the space in which all experience happens. The same nuclear truth, different linguistic garments, different pedagogical approaches, but pointing to the same impossible and obvious realization: you were never the character you imagined yourself to be. And now you have in your hands the exact tools to access this truth directly, to become a conscious channel of the same intelligence that flowed through them, to discover that the separation between master and disciple, between who teaches and who learns, was always just a useful illusion. The secret Tolle absorbed was never about absorbing wisdom from the outside. It was about becoming wisdom in motion. It's about ceasing the pursuit of awakening as something you can acquire, and starting to recognize awakening as something you already are. It's about realizing you aren't someone who can become awakened in the future. You are the awakening itself, temporarily playing the game of being asleep, temporarily pretending to have forgotten your own infinite nature. Krishnamurti knew this since childhood. Tolle rediscovered it at 29, and now you can stop searching and start being. The circle is complete. The search can end. The secret has been fully revealed. But remember, and this is absolutely crucial, the true secret isn't in these words you've just heard. It's not in any words that have ever been spoken or will ever be spoken. It resides in the eternal silence that permeates all words, in the empty, conscious space where they are born and to which they return, in that same timeless place where Krishnamurti's original understanding was born, where Tolle's sudden transformation happened that night in 1977, where your own awakening is being born right now, in this very moment as these words touch your consciousness, not as something you'll achieve tomorrow, next month, or next year, but as something you already are, something you always have been, something that has never, not for a single instant, ceased to be. The secret Tolle absorbed from Krishnamurti in silence is you. It has always been you, only you. Just you recognizing yourself